separate them. You separate the folds. Minchas Koyanim v'Koyan Mashiach. If it's a Minchas Koyanim or the Mincha v'Koyan Gadol, Hayam Makapla was folded, but the Mishnah says it wasn't divided. The Gemara asks, Anan Tanan, but in our Mishnah, by the Koyan Mashiach, it says Lo Hayam Makapla, you didn't fold it at all. And in the Bais it says that you folded it. Amar Rabbi says, Eina Makapla Arba. You don't fold it into fours. That's what the Mishnah is saying. Aval Makapla L'shnayim, but you still folded it into two. Folded it in half. You see, it's interesting. From the Mishnah, we never would have understood that. You need the Brisa to tell me, and then we have a contradiction. Then we figure out that what it means is you don't fold it into four, you only fold it into two. Reb Shimon Aimer, Minchas Kayin and Minchas Kayin Mashiach, Ein Ben B'sisa V'chulu. The chulu is important here, because the end of the Mishnah is V'kulan Paisan Kazesim. That's what it's really quoting. She really wants to quote that last piece, that all of them were broken into size of
here it doesn't have a chulu.
You don't have it? No, really? Uh-huh. I remember in yeshiva I was learning a Gemara, and it had a quote from the Mishnah. I remember I was sitting on it for an hour. I remember where I was sitting. And I know how to figure it out when I get stuck. I know what to do. You go back and you start from the last piece. You go, I was doing everything I'm supposed to do. Then I realized, it says Maika Amar, or Minalan, and then they gave an answer that had no connection to it. So I realized that I wasn't reading the V'chulu. I ignored it. It says etc. I was ignoring the etc. And the whole question was only on something that wasn't quoted. So you have to... Okay. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, Hai Chavitza. Machlekas Rashi and Taisus what Chavitza is. According to Rashi, Chavitza is some sort of stew that has breadcrumbs in it. According to Taisus, Chavitza is breadcrumbs that's put together with honey or fat, oil. It's and the Aruch has another opinion. He says that it's breadcrumbs that you pour on top of it, some sort of soup. Whatever it is, it's breadcrumbs with something. So the Isbek Pirurim Kazayas. It has pieces that are the size of an olive of bread inside this dish. You have to say Hamaitzi on it. It's a very interesting Gemara here, because it would be relevant for croutons. It depends. According to Taisvis, it's relevant to croutons in a salad, or in some sort of. According to Rashi, it's relevant to croutons in a soup. Yeah. But not if you add it to your bowl, because your bowl is a klisheni. If you add it to the original pot, you may be able to change the status. If the croutons are less than the size of an olive, but you add it into the pot that was cooked on the stove, the klirishan, and the cooking of it takes away the status of bread, then it would change the status.
As out of curiosity, so when Taisvis quotes Rashi, he quotes the old Rashi Ksaviyad. He doesn't quote the.
Oh, you think so?
No, you see it.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
So is that
a raya?
I mean, that in itself shows that the old.
It's a good point.
Ksaviyad Rashi is more of a.
It's more accurate. Yeah, it's interesting. It's sometimes you find. Sometimes, I don't see the Rashi in the printed Rashi.
You see
the Ksaviyad, it's here.
Yeah.
Well, there's two versions of Russian.
Yeah. Very good.
No.
Yeah. Sometimes we find that Taisvis makes a big deal.
In this parak, you want to?
No, go ahead.
In this parak, it's right in the beginning. So there's Rashi Ksaviyad right here, which was found on somebody's Gemara in Yerushalayim as the original. And this one, they don't know for sure who wrote it or how. But they said Rabbi was Rashi's daughter. It's longer, no? It seems longer. Okay, sorry, don't mean to interrupt.
No, sometimes we have, Taisvis has a whole discussion on Rashi. When you read Rashi itself, you're not as bothered as the way Taisvis is bothered. And it turns out that Taisvis had a different gears in Rashi. The emphasis was different. And the way it was written, there was an extra word over there that makes a different emphasis. Okay. So, if the pieces in this chavitza are the size of a kazayas, then you say hamaitzi. You only say mezainis on it. We have a rule that anything that has in it the 5 grains never becomes batal. The 5 grains don't become batal. So like in shalant, let's say, if it has barley, if the barley is soft and it's or dissolving, it becomes it's mezainis. You can't say that, oh well, the main thing is the potatoes, the main thing is the meat. You can't say that. 5 grains, chamishas mini dagan leibatli, the Gemara tells us. So the bracha on it would be mezainis. So here, even though the main thing may be the soup, the croutons is a secondary, and we have an ikar and tafel. You break the bracha on the main thing. You don't need a bracha on the secondary. But the 5 grains are never secondary. Okay, so it's either hamaitzi, depending on its size, or it's mezainis. Amar Rav Yosef mina aminala. Rabbi Yosef says, where do I know this from? He says, Titania, it was taught in a brisa. Haya oimid a makar of Menachos b'Yerushalayim. If he's standing and he's offering a mincha in Yerushalayim, no, it needs to add that. There is no other place. Oimer, he says, Baruch Shechianu. He says Shechianu v'kimanu. As Machlekes Rashi and Tosfos, who is talking about. He's talking about the Yisrael that's bringing his mincha, or if it's talking about a kohen that did not bring a mincha yet this year, so he would say a shechianu. The quarter of Shmaya that it's only by Shmaya Pirish Bebrachas, it's only by Menachos because Menachos were not so common. That's where he says a shechianu. But it's not so. They bring from a Tosef, the Tosef brings, that you say a shechianu on a carbon as well. Basically, the Kayanim were divided into families, 24 families. Each family would get to serve 2 times a year, approximately. Right? Maybe 2 families would get 3 families would get an extra week if it's 52 weeks. But twice a year, so it's like 2 seasons. So you would come to do your service. You would say a shechianu the first time you did the mincha.
Was it per year or per 30 days or?
Well, it was per week. So every week, another family came.
No, I mean if the guy came the second time, he said shechianu. The first time, not.
And apparently, it's considered a new season, a new. Okay. Yeah, I did it 6 months ago.
Okay.
So, Natan lo achalan, he takes it to eat it. Aimer hamaitzi lechem min aretz. He says hamaitzi on the carbon mincha. That's very interesting. That may tell us something about chavitza. Tosfos' question on Rashi is, how could you say the Yisrael says the shechianu, the Yisrael doesn't eat the mincha? Can't be the Yisrael. It sounds like the same person that says the shechianu says the hamaitzi. That's why Tosfos says it's the kohen. Utanan. Okay, so he says hamaitzi, and it was taught in the Mishnah. Bekulan psisan bekazayas. All of them were broken into a kazayas. This is Rabbi Yosef's proof that if it's a kazayas, it's hamaitzi.
What proof is that for chavitza?
Why? What's the problem?
Chavitza is cooked.
Oh,
You just said
that's Tosfos kasha. Excellent. That's Tosfos kasha. Because of this question, look at Tosfos chavitza. He says maybe the mincha is fried, and that's considered bishul. He says no, you can't say that. He has all types of issues, but that's why Tosfos says that chavitza isn't cooked, and that's why it will fit. We mentioned before that one of the pshatim on the Mishnah, Kula and Paisam Kazayas, was the Bartanura's pshat. And the Bartanura says that Kula and Paisam Kazayas means you started off with a Kazayas and then you broke it into pieces. So the Tosfos Chadashim on the Mishnayos, he asks on the Bartanura, he says it doesn't fit with the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef's proof that the pieces are hamaitzi is because the pieces are the size of a Kazayas. According to the Bartanura, Pieces on kazayas means that you take a kazayas and you break it into smaller pieces. It messes the whole proof. Nothing fits here. Okay, so Amalei Abaya Bais says to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi is the famous student of Rabbi Yosef. He says, "Ulatana debei Rabbi Yishmael," according to what was taught in the house of Rabbi Yishmael, a brisa of Rabbi Yishmael. Amar mefarchan. It says that you crumble them sultan and you turn it till you turn it back into flour. Do you want to say that according to him, according to Rabbi Yishmael's brisa, carbon minchas doesn't get a hamaitzi? See, if we really believed in Mashiach strong on the children's lists, the brachas charts, it would say carbon mincha hamaitzi. They don't. They put Cheerios, mezainis, to change the list. So it says, according to Rabbi Yishmael, you're not going to say hamaitzi on the mincha. If you say that taka, that's taka true. You don't say. Let's say that's true. But it was taught in a brayso likit mikul and kazayis. If you collect from all of them, all of the pieces. Va'achlu, it doesn't mean pieces of a mincha. It means. I saw over here, likit mikulan. No, it doesn't mean the pieces. You collect from all the pieces. A kazayas, v'achlu, when you ate them, it's supposed to be the achlan. It has to be. What's the base? V'achlan, and you ate them. Im chametzu, if they were chametz, on a shkaris, we're talking about it's on Pesach. The matzahu, if it's matzah, adam yetzi be'amidei chavasi be'Pesach.
Is this Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol?
Yeah, the Rabbi Yishmael is always Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha. The problem is there's two Rabbi Yishmael ben Elishas. One of them was the grandfather, and one of them was the friend of Rabbi Akiva. The friend of Rabbi Akiva, it was also a Kohen Gadol, but it must have been at
both
the
of them
end.
were Kohen Gadol?
Yeah. It was, but it must have been at the very end. Which one was the one that was Surah Malchus? I'm not sure. Okay, so if it's chametz, it's a violation of kares, of course, because it's a kazayas. And if it's matzah, you can fulfill the mitzvah of matzah by eating the pieces of a carbon mincha, because it's Pesach night.
How could it be chametz?
If it would be a taida, then you would have one. There's 4 categories of bread. One category was chametz. Or let's say you messed it up in the process, then it would be pasul, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
The Gemara says, okay, what's our question here? The question is that according to Rabbi Yishmael, you break it into less than a kazayas. What bracha are you going to say on it? Let's say you don't say hamaitzi. Let's say you say mezainis, because it's less than a kazayas. I have a brisa that says on Pesach you can fulfill your obligation. If I'm saying mezainis on it, then it's not bread. It's not lechem einei. So how does the brisa say I fulfill my obligation on mezainis? The only way I can fulfill my obligation is if it's bread. If it's bread, then it needs to be hamaitzi. And what does it mean if it's hamaitzi? It means I'm saying hamaitzi on something that's less than a kazayas. This is a biased question to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef has a good proof. The pieces are the size of a kazayas. You say hamaitzi on it. That we have a brisa. You say hamaitzi, but it doesn't fit with Rabbi Yishmael. The Gemara answers, we're talking about that you kneaded it together. When you took the dough, when you took these pieces, that were a bunch of pieces, they were separate, you squished it together, you turned it into one clump. And now this clump is the size of a kazayas. And that's why you can be yoitza even though he says you crumble it up, but that doesn't mean that when you're eating it, and you're yoitza matzah, that it's in crumbs. That you mixed it, you pushed it together. Ihachi, if that's the case, Hainu diktani Allah, that's what it means. He had to eat it in the amount of time that it would take to eat a half a loaf of bread. The way it works is that what's considered eating, one eating, is a certain amount of time that you have to eat it. A chilas pras is a pras means a half a loaf of bread. Now, however many minutes that is, 4 minutes or something. The Ibeshe'ersan, but if we're talking about that he pushed it together and he turned it into one klum, what does it mean sha'achlan? That he ate them. Sha'achloi mi ba'ilei, that he ate it. It's not them. Them is pieces. If he mixed it together, then he ate it. It's one klum.
But it was mixed, it's them.
It's a little funky.
But if it's them, then he should say a bracha on the only way that it would turn into a hamaitzi is if it's an it, not a them. Elahachav mayaskinan. Here we have an interesting chiddush. What are we dealing with? B'ba milachem gadol. When do we say that crumbs could lose their status of hamaitzi? That's if you don't have the loaf of bread sitting next to it. It's all crumbs. But if you have a loaf of bread and you have the crumbs on the side, right next to it, you can't say that these are mezainis and that's hamaitzi. It still has the chashivas of bread with the fact that it's right there. I don't know where this plays out in halacha, but that's what the Gemara is answering. My havi Allah, what's the conclusion here? Rav Sheshes Amar, afili pirurim shein bem kazayas. That Rav Sheshes says that you have to say hamaitzi even if it's less than a kazayas.
If they came from an important bread.
I don't think that's the pshat.
Oh yeah?
I don't think so. It may be, but I didn't learn it like that.
Yeah,
I learned that
over here it says
chavitza.
no,
I think it's going back on chavitza, and it's saying what is the halacha? My havi Allah. He says b'din chavitza.
So they all considered together.
So,
but let me ask you a question. Don't you have to eat a minimum of a kazayis of a chavitza to say hamaitzi?
A bracha rishayna, you have to say even on a small amount.
But the whole idea that it comes together makes it into bread, no?
That was it. No, the teretz that we gave for Rabbi Shmuel was that you put it together, but we had a kasha on that teretz because it says v'hu sha'achlan, so we didn't accept that teretz. So we're not accepting Rabbi Yosef. We're taking Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says even if there's no kazayas, Amar Rava comes along and says v'hu dika teresa denam alayo. That's only if those pieces. Let's say that Rav is a continuation of Rav Sheshes, which is a problem historically because no, it's not a problem. Rav Sheshes is a Talmud.
Rav Sheshes is arguing on Rav Yosef?
Yeah.
So he says even if it doesn't have piruim kazayis.
Right.
So even, if this is a bracha rishayna.
Right.
And we're saying that it depends how big the piruim are.
Now, according to Rav Sheshes, even if it's less than a kazayis, it's still hamaitzi. However, Rabbi says he qualifies what Rav Sheshes says. It has to have a form of bread. It has to be recognizable that it's bread. Teresa denam means tzura sapas. It has to look like bread. You would see the bulges like in challah. You see like the, it has to have, or you could tell that it's bread. If you can't tell that it's bread, then
that would be according to Taisus, because according to Rashi, if he cooked it in hot,
then it would have dissolved probably. Actually, I don't know the types of bread. All our bread seems to be the same. Okay, that's we learned it that Rav is a continuation on Rav Sheshes. Other Rishonim learn that Rav is not talking about Rav Sheshes. He's going back on could be on Rabbi Yosef, or that you always need tzur sapas. He's not saying.
Why would Rav Sheshes and Rav Yosef talk about if the piruim have a kazayis or not? When it comes to saying the bracha rishayna, the measurement is not relevant.
Right.
You just said.
Right. Okay. So.
Why do they care?
Yeah, because it needs to be considered bread first.
It was bread before.
Right. But now it's put, let's say, according to Rashi, it's put into a pot of soup. So it could be it loses its status of bread in a pot of soup, depending on its size. If it still like I'm boiling it up, if it dissolves in there, so it loses its status. Okay. If it stays whole. And now, after I eat it, now when it comes to eating it, now it doesn't matter how much of it I eat. I always need to say hamaitzi.
Makes sense.
Okay. It's good to get back into.
So yesterday, Avi brought the Hashmatas. He brought the
Oh yeah.